The mechanics I'm using for these games come primarily from Dungeons & Dragons, Monster of the Week, and a DM-less system called Gloomhaven. Specifically, while I'm using some of the role-playing aspects of Dungeons & Dragons and the dice mechanics of Monster of the Week, the DM-less system is probably the most important aspect of these games. Now, a DM, or a Dungeon Master, generally runs the game, creating the narrative and embodying the non-player characters that the players interact with. However, to facilitate larger class sizes, I utilize a DM-less system. Now, this is akin to the choose-your-own-adventure novels made popular in the late 70s and 80s. This allows students to run the adventure on their own, with all people being players in the game. The way this works is as the students read through the narrative-based game, they confront choices, and either as individuals in the introductory adventure, or as a group in the small group game, they make choices based upon their reading of the novel and what they feel their character would do in that situation. This leads them down different pathways for both games. In the small group game, this also includes a dice mechanic. Now, these mechanics are based on the stat blocks popular in Dungeons & Dragons and in Monster of the Week. However, these are simplified to use one d6 or one six-sided die and add a modifier based upon their character roles and choices in the individual game. These modifiers are added or subtracted from their dice rolls and determine the outcomes of some situations. Instead of choosing their character roles and rolling up their own stat blocks like you would in D&D or Monster of the Week, the character roles and stats are based upon the student's choices during the introductory adventure. They're presented initially with a choice between 3 of the separate classes in Orwell's 1984, the inner party, the outer party, or the proles. Depending on that initial choice, many different pathways in the narrative-based game open up to them. At the end of this introductory adventure, the students are given their character roles based upon their choices and the associated stat blocks that go along with those roles. They will then use these character roles and stats in the small group game. Some of these roles instruct the student to keep the role a secret, especially the ultimate goals and objectives of that character. As such, the introductory adventure is meant to be played on their own, generally as homework or by setting aside a small period of class time. It should be noted that the introductory adventure does allow students to go back and redo their choices if they're unhappy with the outcome, or if they just want to explore different pathways. For the small group game, students should arrange themselves into groups of 3 to 5, with 4 being the perfect number. Now, this is not based upon the classes or the character roles they were awarded at the end of the introductory adventure, but rather however they would like to arrange themselves. Once they start playing the game, they'll find that certain pathways are only open to certain character roles, and if they don't have one of those present in their group, they'll have to make a different choice. This game is also where we introduce the dice dynamic. Now, as you'll see, the dice can be used in several different ways. The first is a link embedded in the Google Slides that will open up a new window with just a regular dice roller. There are also 2 other options for using digital dice embedded in these Google Slides. However, we'll cover those later in another video. Lastly, the small group game is only meant to take about 15 to 20 minutes, with 30 minutes being the maximum that any group should spend going through this adventure. If you feel you might be short on time, you can always introduce a countdown clock. This will add some suspense and raise the stakes for the small group game. The introductory adventure invites the students to play through a narrative of Oceania at the brink of revolution. They first choose one of the classes of Orwell's 1984, and then make choices that will ultimately get them involved in the growing revolution, either as members of the Brotherhood, proles, or spies working from the inner party. Throughout the game, there are questions that ask them to reflect on why their character would choose this path, and what they stand to gain or lose as an individual if Big Brother is overthrown. The second game sees the students banding together, and either trying to overtake the Ministry of Love or the Ministry of Truth, depending on their choices. Now, this game has several different outcomes, some where Big Brother wins, and others that see the revolution succeed. However, win or lose, the game ultimately asks the students to reflect on 1984. If they win, how do they reorganize the government? What do they do with those people who are still loyal to Big Brother? And if they lose, if they think another revolution is imminent, or if Big Brother and the party will ultimately retain power forever.